How is the league, based on who you were talking to, Dregs, how did they respond to Gary Bettman's claim last night that nobody tanks, that tanking doesn't exist in the NHL? Does anyone actually believe that, or do we all know the true answer?
No, I mean, well, you're leading the witness here.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, but I see. I don't want to sound like a guy that beats a drum for Gary Bettman, but I do understand and I appreciate what he's saying because to a degree I believe it. And not to go down this path again. We all agree. Players are going to play, coaches are going to coach. So it comes down to management and ownership. And yeah, of course there are certain situations and you can, pretty much identify right now who the teams are in the NHL where management is being brutally honest with their coaches and their players. We're not giving you any help. This is what it is. And in fact, we're going to move out players. That's the reality. So is that how we define tanking? I guess so, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there were eyebrows raised when Cole Caulfield last week was, all of a sudden deemed to be, needing of shoulder surgery. But, there's a situation where he probably played 10, maybe less games where it was dicey, where they felt like they were going to have to pull the plug. And then they just decided that they needed to. Well, is it convenient to the Montreal Canadiens? It certainly appears that way to be on the outside. And then from a Caulfield's perspective, he's having a great year. He's scoring goals, one of the few in Montreal. Why would he leave that much on the table when he's, fully engaged in a contract extension? So Gary was what Bettman always is, right? He's dismissive, he's in your face, and he's borderline combative, which is unnecessary. Like, he defines what tanking is. Well, okay, 30 years ago, maybe, but that's not the way it is now. Like, no different than any other system that the NHL has developed, be it the salary cap system, whatever. These guys are smart people. They find ways to angle around it. So we can apply whatever word we want. Bettman doesn't like the word tanking. I get it to a point, but, let's be clear here. You're going to look at teams and how they unload in the very near future, and how do you describe it as anything other than clearing the deck so you've got a better opportunity to the draft and you can rebuild or try and get your foundation back in track. Well, what is that? What is that? It's kind of another definition, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the timing of it also, hurts Bettman because of who is available this year, because it's Bedard. And he is now being ranked at a level where McDavid was and Crosby was. And O brought this point up earlier that I think where this tanking conversation gets to in terms of selling it is the owners are in on it. Because if your GM goes to you and says, hey, if we bring Bedard in, we're going to sell 1 million jerseys, we're going to sell tickets, we're going to be on national TV. Like, that is so like, Connor Bedard is going to get an entry-level contract, but he's worth tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions in terms of franchise value. That's what he represents.
Right. I agree, man. I agree. And, we're not ready to, even though there's been that debate and much of it has been, created by the Quizmaster, right? Like, leading up to the World Juniors. What Connor Bedard is he a superstar or is he a generational player? Well, how are we going to know that until we see this kid step onto the ice and be a star in the National Hockey League? But isn't it curious to most of us, we see all these trades in the Ontario Hockey League, and this player goes out for umpteen picks, and this player and that player. They're all very, very good players. The Regina Pats did a great job very early on of saying, we're not interested in trading Connor Bedard. And maybe Bedard didn't want to get traded too, but he's not going back to the Western Hockey League next year. Like, where's the value in all that? Well, it has to be financial, at least from my perspective. So the jury is still out on what this kid is going to be. But what we know, as Bob McKenzie acknowledged earlier this week on SportsCenter, is that call him whatever you want. A star, a generational player, whatever. He is well ahead of the pack in terms of what June is going to look like at that draft. And anybody who's watched this kid play and saw him play and what he did at the World Juniors, you don't need to be a pro scout or an NHL general manager to realize what this kid is going to bring to your organization. But again, to go back to the whole tanking theme, it fits in theory, but only from a health perspective and what your team is willing to do or not willing to do to make your club better until the end of the regular season. And that's where it becomes even more apparent, I would think.